our next episode of God Conscious Organizations. And as I've explained previously, what God Conscious means, especially from an Islamic perspective. And Islamic, because my guest today is Dr. Muna Abdelaziz, and she has started an Islamic credit union. So I would like to ask her about this. But before we do that, from an Islamic perspective, when we say God conscious, it means something we say taqwa. So having reliance and taqwa in God. So those organizations who base their philosophy on God reliance and taqwa is what we understand as God conscious organizations. And today, as I've previously, we spoke about Mondragon and the Catholic, it was started by a Catholic priest. So Dr. Muna is a medical doctor as well. She will introduce herself, but she started an Islamic credit union, YourB, and she will explain why she's chosen this name. So over to Dr. Muna. Thank you so much for joining me and also agreeing to talk about this. Can you please introduce yourself just briefly and tell me how did a doctor end up in a financial, starting a financial institution? Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you today, Anika, and it's great that the topic that you have chosen is so important for all of us in terms of God consciousness. And we try and, have God consciousness in everything that we do as individuals. And it's really interesting that as a community, we have to observe that in our organizations as well. So my name is Muna Abdelaziz. I'm a doctor, medical doctor, but also I'm a director of public health medicine, and I'm responsible for population health in one of the areas in the UK. I'm also a mother. I've got 3 children, and where this started was when my son was going to university, and we realized that Student Finance UK was interest bearing, and that whoever takes that loan straight away on day one from university, interest kicks in, and that starts to calculate whether you are repaying the loan or not. We felt as a community that this puts a huge burden on families and individuals to go against their principles and their values, particularly because the value of a good education is the prosperity for our community. So it puts very many families in direct contradiction to what they would see as God consciousness. So with a group of friends, we have founded a cooperative, which is, if we explain it, many of our communities understand we pool our money, and then whoever needs to borrow it first will take out of that pool. So this is a regulated finance organization that is registered with the regulators here in the UK, and we are registered to be able to offer loans to our members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is amazing work. So I know that not all of my audience would be Muslims. So for them to understand, even though not charging interest is also, it's, in many other faith traditions, especially the Abrahamic, there is also a decree, like, you can't charge interest. But I know that Muslims have still sort of stuck by it, and it still matters. And this is also very interesting that just recently I've been working with a friend, and he told me that 40,000 Muslim students are out of universities because of this very reason that you've said, that they wouldn't take a loan because of its interest-bearing loan, and they won't take the loan because they are for religious purposes. And they've been working with the government, and a bill has been passed now, and it's called the Alternative Student Finance, as in they will give loans to especially Muslim students and not charge interest, which is but yours is, of course, it's a private community-led initiative. And I really like this because for some time I've been trying to do that myself, that, and I've been saying it should be community-based and community-led initiative rather than, state-led. Most people understand the concept of credit union, but just briefly, if you can explain. And then also please say, what is the distinction between Islamic credit union? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned as well the government initiative around alternative student finance, and that has been promised for many years. And we hope that it comes in 2025. And in the absence of that, of course, we were forced to pool our community resources and find solutions for some of us because we cannot help all of us. The government is the one that can help all students. And it has affected many families, thousands who haven't been able to take university, as you've explained. So you've asked, what is a credit union? A credit union is a financial cooperative. So we pool our resources, our financial resources, and we use them for the benefit of our members. There have been credit unions for hundreds of years. Let's use the example in Ireland, where 1 in 5 people are members of a credit union. Now, YourB Credit Union is the first Sharia-compliant credit union in the UK. We are the youngest credit union because for over 10 years, there were no credit unions, new credit unions that were registered. So we are really pioneers in the fact that we are Sharia compliant, ethical in everything that we do. It isn't, as you said, it isn't just about interest bearing. Thank you.
Okay, so tell me, why did you choose this name then? What's in the name?
Oh, what's in the name? The name is what it says on the tin, you know. But I just refer you to the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, which is the second chapter of the Quran, and it says, يَمْحَقُ اللَّهُ الرِّبَا وَيُرْبِي الصَّدَقَاتِ, which translates to that there is no blessing or reward or benefit or growth in riba, in interest, but God will increase whatever you put in charity. And so we felt that this charitable alternative to interest was very much backed by the Quran, by this verse in the Quran. And so we chose that word, YourB, which means grows in prosperity. And so we are YourB Credit Union.
Beautiful. Thank you for explaining that, because as I was just mentioning to you, that on your website, I don't see all that written, as in, you're just saying Sharia compliant. To me, it doesn't, it kind of, I feel it's more like divisive, it segregates other communities, because you're saying, there is sort of some hesitancy around Sharia compliant anything, especially when we are living in a society which is a secular society, although it's a Christian country. So it kind of just, puts that divide as well, and kind of could be limiting for others, because you say Sharia compliant. And this is why I wanted to have this dialogue with you. That I'm seeing that there are many new organizations and initiatives that are now sprouting around the UK. We have National Zakat Foundation, we have National Waqf Foundation. So my question to you would also be that just by putting the tag as in Sharia compliant doesn't say much, unless we also talk about the philosophy, the essence of why this was, what was the purpose of setting this up for you? And it shouldn't be just for Muslims, right? It's not just for Muslims only.
And it isn't just for Muslims. So in our very original steering group, we had non-Muslims along with us because they too could see the inherent unfairness of having people excluded because of their faith from accessing a good value education. And we are supported by UK Credit Unions Trade Association, and many credit unions are Christian based, and so we have their support as well. Also, we were tapping into the values, and it was about being ethical. So even though we may say we are Sharia compliant, we actually say we are ethical and Sharia compliant, because we know that we appeal to an ethical mindset of people who are looking at ethical investment, ethical, outcomes for local communities and things that are inherently fair within that, and that do not exploit, because, being ethical means you're not exploiting environmental resources, you're not exploiting human resources. And that is the philosophy, of course, that we all kind of agree upon. As a credit union, we had to show that we were inclusive and open to all who shared our values and were like-minded. So you will see within our membership organizations that aren't necessarily Islamic, we have schools, we have scout clubs who are part of us, we have youth groups. We also have places of worship. So we are open to named places of worship, and that could be a church or it could be a mosque. Now, as most of our community are connected, most of our places of worship are Islamic. And so it is actually open and inclusive. But so far, we haven't been able to reach beyond the Islamic area because that's where we had seen most exclusion. Other faiths are able to join the usual credit unions, and they have been supporting the usual credit unions, where when they put their savings, they get interest on those. And when whoever borrows is paying interest on that. So they are not being excluded from the credit union movement. Actually, they've been leading the credit union movement. It's only the Muslim community that have been excluded.
Yes. So would it then remain exclusive as well, exclusive for Muslims? And my question is also related, and the purpose of my research is also this, that, yes, certainly we have realized that, it's a very nascent sort of, at the moment, this whole Islamic finance sector. It's kind of in its evolutionary phase. It will evolve more, but especially living in secular societies, we can either remain very exclusive, or then how do we become inclusive? Why I'm saying this is, how do we attract others? And that's also related to my question to you, that just saying Sharia compliant actually sort of limits it. It makes it very exclusive. It's like just for Muslims. So do you think we can get over this hurdle sometime?
I see it differently, Anika. I see that the mainstream institutions, including finance organizations, they are the ones that are excluding portions of the community. Ourselves, we are very rich in our human resources, in our social capital and connectedness, and we are excluded from accessing mainstream finance products. We're now excluded from accessing mainstream education products as well. So when we set up a credit union that is truly ethical and truly inclusive, the branding that we are Sharia compliant actually then just shows that we are more inclusive than the other mainstream organizations. And that's our purpose, is to be inclusive and ethical, open to all.
I just read on your website, there is something called YourB Hardship Fund. So what is this fund used for? For what purpose? Like, have you started any community projects with the community?
So YourB as a brand is still open to education and finance. It isn't just limited to the credit union. The credit union is our very first initiative. But within that, we recognize that our members may be facing hardship, whereas our product was about education initially. And so, particularly if you look at the cost of living crisis, because of our limited resources, the fact that we are a very small credit union, that we are still a young organization and just in our fourth year, we cannot promise to help, people who are not members. So that was our pledge to our members. If you find yourself in hardship, we as an organization accept zakat. We as an organization accept donations, and we can dedicate a portion of that towards our members who are in hardship. And that's the YourB Hardship Fund.
Right. Do you see that in future there could be a cooperative kind of, initiative coming from your credit union? Because credit unions are attached to cooperatives as well. That was the purpose.
That's right. So YourB is a financial cooperative. There are other consumer cooperatives like, who sell and buy. You have other building associations that are cooperatives. You have housing associations that are cooperatives. So as a financial cooperative, YourB is a credit union. We're also an education cooperative, which is our next ambition, to start YourB Education and have education products offered alongside our finance products. So yes, I think that because we're already a cooperative, we depend on our members. I think that's what sets us apart, by members for members. So we're all volunteers. None of us are paid. We're doing it in our own time. And so that helps keep our costs low. We are kind of like looking to grow ourselves, to increase our capital, increase our membership, increase our volunteer base, increase our geographical spread. This is just now our fourth year.
Mashallah, you've done good. But what plan do you have in mind to, how would it spread the message? I mean, looking for volunteers, how are you spreading this message and
So
attract them?
that's right. So we have a group who are our friends of YourB Credit Union, and they are looking at our marketing, looking at increasing, our volunteer base, our membership base. Once we have more members with their different skills, then they can support the cooperative with their own skill sets. So we have engineers and we have accountants, we have lawyers, we have doctors, in our credit union. Each of us are using their skills and their networks to bring in and to connect other additional members of society. We've also growing on in terms of the base of organizations who can offer YourB. So recently we added more different places of worship, different schools who opted to join YourB. Previously, we didn't have much of a presence in Milton Keynes. Now in Milton Keynes, we've got several organizations that can offer YourB. And so that's the way in which we grow. We will grow through different partner organizations who join us.
Mm. Would you say that speaking about the philosophy of YourB would also attract more people, because rather than just, it's not an Islamic credit union only, it has a philosophy, it has a strong base of this philosophical and also very God conscious, when you say, the growth, it is like the barakah, it grows. The more you give and it grows. Do you think that do you speak about that philosophy often when you speak to others?
We do, and it's actually looking for like-minded individuals. Very many individuals or organizations will understand our philosophy and they will connect with it either from an ethical perspective, from a fairness value perspective, or from an Islamic perspective. I think that where they have multiple options, they will go for those. Let's just use an example of mortgage products. There are so very many mortgage products that usually any ordinary individual will be comparing them on the basis of price. But when you look at Islamic, home financing, people are not just looking at the price. Actually, they may find themselves paying more for an Islamic product. So again, here for the credit union, where would you leave your money? People would tend to leave it in the usual banks and earn interest on it. Whereas with the true God consciousness from an Islamic perspective, we would not use that interest. So we find like-minded individuals who are opting out of mainstream banking to leave their funds with a credit union like YourB, because they can see that their money is being used to support the community and to help others with no financial gain. And that is much better than them leaving it in a mainstream organization and discounting that financial gain.
Yes, yes. You've started as a mother, especially. Rather than just from a business perspective. I understand credit union is not a business. It's not also a charity. It's basically for the service of the community. That's why credit unions were started, to serve the community. The purpose was that for service, not for charity, not for profit, but for service. That was, I think, their motto. So again, I'm trying to get my head around it. I know that you're saying it's Muslims were excluded, but then when we talk about community, are we just serving our community, as in Muslim community, or the community? And you're saying that people are joining you. And the philosophy, as I said, do you have to explain it like you've explained the name and you've quoted this ayah? Do you explain that to people who don't understand it in the terms Muslims would understand?
So yes, I do, and we explain it to many of our friends and work colleagues, and they too as well would support us and stand by us. We find that many of them do not actually join us because, like I've said, they've got alternatives that they've already been members of. You also mentioned around earlier, we were talking about Islamic finance organizations and their ethos. We are all, operating in a very complex regulatory environment that does not understand our God consciousness ethics, or, the reasons why what we're able to do, actually, even what we're even able to say or to condone or to sign up to. And every annual general meeting, we have our Sharia advisor who actually gives us an update from the Sharia perspective, not just about our own products, that they are Sharia compliant and the way we operate, but also about the context in which we operate, particularly, mentioning about environmental sustainability, our ethics and so on, but also the fact that many financial organizations are right now pulling out of the market here in the UK because of the complexity, and they cannot compete with the cheaper, more mainstream alternatives. So I think we know, our friends and colleagues know that we are operating under very difficult circumstances. So they will do what they need to help us and assist us wherever they can. They can promote by word of mouth, but in actual terms, joining us and becoming our members and volunteering their time, we find that is a like-minded, Sharia-minded colleagues, friends, families in our community who are willing to take that step and actually join, put their money where their mouth is, and put their time to the service of the community.
Amazing. I appreciate your effort that you started this, just starting this in this very complex sort of dynamics of community and the secular society. I think this is very encouraging that at least you started this. If you have anything else to share with us, please do. Any inspiring stories or anything, maybe?
So I think, you've pointed out that as a cooperative, we help each other. We've found huge support from other cooperatives. We've found huge support from trade associations, found huge support from charities like Ansar Finance, who are hosting us. So Ansar have been here for nearly 30 years, operating in the community and giving interest-free personal loans. But when we look at the education sector, where suddenly interest became a huge, burden, we were talking about people going into interest-bearing debt for an education of £30,000 or more. So at that level, then we needed a different instrument. And if you compare the charity, look at our own funds, I would give what a surplus to my needs into charity, but I would save what I believe I'm going to need in future. So by using a credit union instead of a charity as the vehicle, it means we can use more of our community's wealth while they're not actually using it, while they don't need it. It also encourages people to save for their own future and for the future of their communities. And that's why we chose to operate a credit union. And that's why Ansar Finance have chosen to support us. Now we are reaching out every Ramadan in particular. We remind our local communities that we need your support. We need you to give your time, your money, your skill, and word of mouth to make sure that more people can benefit from a credit union like ours. Thank you.
Especially, I think the financial literacy around, especially the Islamic values, our own communities are not aware of that. And I think you and I, all of us have to kind of collaborate and join forces to, spread the message across, because people don't even understand these, except for the fact that they only know about, interest is haram and that's it. And nothing about, what you have shared with us, YourB, how, it increases and what is the need for an initiative like this. I think we need to also have those community dialogues where we can, spread this message and share why an initiative like yours is, especially in this environment, in the circumstances we are all in, is very important. Thank you so much for this. This was lovely.
Thank you so much for hosting me and for spotlighting YourB Credit Union.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.